Hi, my name's Anant and I'm from Talent Outdoor. I represent the IPAO at the various standards committees. Hopefully you've seen the presentation from Mungo on space, as well as things on OpenDirect and OpenRTB, as well as the Velvet Bag. If you haven't seen the Velvet Bag, don't worry, you will see it soon. So, you've mostly seen why standards are important, in particular in the buying process. But one of the key aspects that Outsmart have been working on is reporting at the end of the buying process. So why is that important? Well, ultimately, customers do want to know what they've paid for. Prior to the standards being developed, there was a whole plethora of different methods of providing the information, very manual, very time-consuming, inaccurate, and also prone to long delays. The standards have been developed by both the buy side, the IPAO, as well as the sell side, the media owners. And it's one of the first times that the media owners in any country have worked together to develop and publish these standards. The media owners, as listed there, include the Big Four in the UK, and also the specialists include Kinetic, Mediacom, Posterscope, and Talent. As well as the media owners and specialists, there are other parties involved in developing the standards as well. So as you can see, it's a full industry that have worked to promote and build standards out. So what are they? As you can imagine, everyone has their own view in terms of what information to report on at different levels and different mechanisms. So the standards allow us to define a common file format, and also when the information is published, and the quality of the information as well. They've been designed for not just the digital signage, but also for traditional classic formats as well. And every time an advert is played, for example, in digital out of home, there's the ability to report on that in a consistent way. This data can then be aggregated and made available to the buyers at the required cadence. What does it look like? So for classic information, it's not an onerous amount of data that's required, but it's essentially consistency that's the important thing. And it's also providing the information, as I've repeated previously, in a regular, repeatable mechanism. So what's important? The start date, the time, the order that this playout relates to, the inventory, and that's using the space IDs that the advert was played on. The creatives are important because, again, the customer wants to know where their ads have been placed. So for example, you might have a national campaign where in the morning there's a different advert, and in the evening there's a different advert. Obviously that's more for digital, but even for classic you may have regional differences, such as in Manchester there might be different copy to the creatives in London. And again, the customer should be made aware of what's being played, where and when. Where it gets more complex is for digital. So if you can imagine, if we have a digital campaign running for 4 weeks across 1,000 different sites, playing every minute, for around 20 hours a day, that's over 1 million records of data. So you can quite quickly see how, for multiple campaigns, this starts becoming quite complex. And rather than having to send emails with spreadsheets, we needed a way to standardize how that information was collected and presented back to the customer. Again, like classic, we have start date, end time, share of time, creative ID, but also how many, in terms of aggregating this, so rather than having 1 million records, aggregating that to an hourly level, how many were booked and then how many were actually delivered. So what does it look like at playout level? So if required, we can go down to individual plays, and like classic, it's the same information, so there's that consistency in terms of the data provided. So how is this information published? So the standards are available on GitHub. There's a variety of different mechanisms of providing that, essentially 3. So there can be APIs where the information is pulled on request. There's a method of publishing the data in files. So again, if the volume of data is quite large, it's possible for the customers to obtain that information via file drops or the preferred method of storage. And finally, there's a method of pushing the information as well. later this year, we'll also be working on a spreadsheet template that allows the media owners to provide this information in a consistent way without having to rely on APIs or other technology. Why they're good for the media buyers? Again, as I've kind of said several times, it's the consistency of format. This allows us as buyers to understand all the different suppliers that are providing us with space and how we can aggregate that information quickly and consistently and provide that to our customers ultimately. Provides first-party transparency, so there's no need to have a middleman, as it were, to aggregate this information for us. We can do that directly. And finally, it works with both programmatic platforms as well as more manual platforms as well. Why they're good for the media owners? Again, it's the consistency of the format, allows clarity of technical guidance between all the media owners. There's a direct relationship with the buyer, and it removes the third-party aggregations. And finally, where can you get more information? So, as I've said, the standards like OpenDirect and OpenRTB are all available on GitHub.